Hello, everybody. I am so excited to welcome Mushka Teleshevsky here today for our next episode. I met Mushka through a course that we ran, our last Peru course, and she took it, the course that I was teaching here in LA. And I was so blown away by you, Mushka,
Oh,
and just like so much that you had to share in the course and like the way you contributed to the conversation. There was just so much there. So maybe first you can give us like a formal introduction to who you are and what you do in general, and then we'll dive into some of the things I want to discuss today.
okay. Thank you. Well, I very much enjoyed the course. That was really special. My name is Mushka Teleshevsky, and I'm a wife, a mother to a beautiful family. We live on Shluchas in Playa del Rey in California, and I am a college teacher and very passionate about the mitzvah of Taras HaMishpacha. So I guess I would say I'm a college teacher and like a Taras HaMishpacha instructor for however way I could show up and support women in that mitzvah.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay, so something that I noticed right away when you joined our course and like the way you showed up to the conversations was two things about you. Number one, like you have such an like I guess intense can sometimes sound negative, but like such a real like passion and excitement for the things that you learn. Um, like I feel like you really have like connected to these ideas in Torah and like in a really really personal way. And also, I felt like a lot of times, a few times in the course, we like approached sources or texts that were like a little touchy or a little sensitive or could be controversial or potentially even triggering for some women. And I felt like your approach was so unique in the sense that you really had this real like openness and just curiosity about like what is Torah saying? Like how do we like how can I like really just be open to what Torah has to share and add to my life and allow it to impact me. So I'd love for you to like, just talk about that a little bit. Like what how have you been able to cultivate that sense of like openness and sort of being able to like bring Torah into your life in a very integrated way?
Okay, well, that's very sweet of you to share that way, and I definitely, I'm a growing, evolving person. I think we all are. I think personally, like I'm naturally a very sensitive person and also like a seeker. Like I've always just been wanting to understand more, you know. And I think like when Hasidus really began to touch me in like a very deep way, I remember I was in seminary and I was learning the mimer, B'yai Mashte Asar, and I was talking about the sense of like Atmos, like a connection to Hashem that's beyond like the pleasure I get from doing it or beyond the pleasure I'm going to feel because I feel one to Hashem. There's like this essential connection that's so real that like everything else is almost like doesn't matter because I'm just one. I'm one with my essence. I've come to this incredible like oneness. And when I learned that concept, I think it was the first time that I was studying a Hasidic concept that I was like, oh, okay, there's so much more here to discover. There's so much more than just what I'm experiencing in this moment. I think I would put it as like a terminology like transcendence. Like we can just rise above the everyday everything when we connect to something that's so much greater. And with transcendence, it can become a very tricky process because, and I think this is where a lot of my inner work has come in my process of learning, is like transcendence can be misunderstood as like, for lack of better terminology, like spiritual bypass sometimes, right? We're like, okay, I'm just going to go past everything. Like, forget it. This is too complicated. Just bring me somewhere where I don't have to deal with it. I'll just like almost override it all. But that's not what transcendence is. I think transcendence, like in the, if we, when we really delve into the sources and we really learn what Hasidus is teaching us, it's, if anything, like sometimes it's a time where we hold space for opposites because when you're in the infinite, they don't have to counteract. Okay, maybe I don't understand this right now. That's okay. Like I go hold space for that. This is a little different. This is not how I took it, but there's for sure something more for me to discover in this space. I might not discover it today. Okay. Like there'll be a time that will come, like Ilam Shana Nefesh. Things will align and things will like make sense to me. And sometimes it happens quicker than you think. And sometimes I have to wait. But I realize there's like whole world, infinite places that I can understand. And the more I work with what I can understand, I might come to my own sense of understanding and the things that make me feel slightly uncomfortable at first glance.
Yeah, I think actually I really love how you put that because I feel like there's sort of this like on the one hand you don't want to be like learning. Okay, I'm learning something in Torah, and I'm just kind of like bypassing myself. Like I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm not going to like think about how this actually feels or resonates with me. I'm just going to like accept, okay, this is what Torah says. This is true. This is real. And like my own personal feelings about it are irrelevant, right? Which on some level is true, right? Like this is absolute
Right.
truth. And my feelings are irrelevant, right? But like when we learn in that way, there's also this, like you said, like this spiritual bypassing, right? Like I'm bypassing myself. I'm not bringing myself into that experience at all. And I'm just sort of ignoring whatever my personal like feeling or perspective is about it. So on the one hand, we don't want to be doing that because it kind of makes our learning very removed from ourselves and like doesn't really integrate, right? So we don't want that kind of transcendence. But at the same time, like when we like really are in touch with ourselves and our own feelings and our own perspectives and our own biases or hangups or whatever it is, and we're really in that place and like you're learning really coming only from that place, you kind of get caught up very much in those questions and those frustrations, and it doesn't allow you to just like be open, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like there's like a balance of both those things of like you said, like acknowledging where I am at in this, and also like being okay with saying like I can hold both of those things. I can hold that this is true
Yeah.
and that I have a hard time with it at the same time.
Yeah. And I think like Hasidus asks of us to have a high level of self-awareness. Like, where is this uncomfortable, not asks of us, but invites us to. Like, where is this uncomfortability coming from? Why am I triggered by this text? Is there something more that I can discover in this space? Like, for me, I've found on my own journey that, like, learning to regulate my nervous system and to take care of my own self was an equally important part to being able to understand Hasidus and living with it.
Hmm.
Like, I couldn't just, there were times I learned certain texts and I felt like they were yelling at me. Like,
Hmm.
Mushka, you should be better, you know? And I had to come to a place with support of others. And I'm a big proponent of like getting the support we need to like come back to that same text. And now it's like this like warm, welcoming, encouraging learning opportunity. And I can see it differently. And it's that I was able to like see, you know, I literally feel like I'm a student of so many teachers. Like I've learned so much over the years, just like from being able to, like, I Baruch Hashem nowadays with like people. I think after the pandemic, like so much became available online, so we're not limited to one teacher. You can have global teachers, you know. But like that sense when the Rebbe said like in Basi Lagani, like Nasavalai Kadosh Baruch Hu liyasdir b'tachtainim. Like, there's no tachtain more than me. Like, can I make the Shechina? Can I allow the Shechina to rest in me? And for the Shechina to rest in me means like, what does Mushka look like? I'm like regulated. When the Shechina is in me, I don't have to feel nervous. I don't have to feel triggered and emergency mode. And I got like, there's a sense of peace. Like, I think of it as like an artist. If you ever look at an artist, any kind of artist, whether it's painting or music or whatever kind of art a person's involved in, there's not that frigid control, right? There's like this like loose and limp, beautiful, graceful movements that happen. So I think so too, like in our connection with Hashem, when it feels like this like sense of like an unhealthy urgency, because there is a certain sense of we want to get things done, but like when it comes from like an unhealthy like need for control or urgency and like that tightness, then I'm like, okay, this is not godly.
Hmm.
Godliness is like when you're at peace, when you can just like look at this from a space of like we are all held by Hashem. There is like infinite support. Hashem is going to send me the guidance and clarity I need in this moment. But that urgent energy, like, well, how am I going to get it all done when like this hard space? Like I'm too tight. Like I think of a woman in labor. When you're in that space and you're so tight, it's hard to let anything happen. But if I can just be like relaxed and knowing like I'm held by the Abishter and I'm guided by Hashem, then each one of the teachings that I learned are literally like Hashem talking to me to what I need to hear today.
Hmm. So can you give an example of like something a source that like at some one point you learned it and this is triggering or was like challenging for you and like you had that like initial reaction of like feeling triggered, feeling resistant to like accepting this, and then you were able to like kind of take that step back and then come back to it later and like just see it in a different way. Do you have an example?
I do have an example. There's one specific one that's coming to me now. I don't know why. I'm going to share it. It's very interesting. So this is like a very specific source. It's like a sikha of the Rebbe. But the Rebbe said on Kayach Nisan, like the sikha of Tut Basar Kent, we all have to do everything that we can. And in that sikha, the Rebbe says, like, I can't quote it exactly, but the words that always stuck at me was like, the Rebbe was saying, like, everything that he's done has been like, Lahevel Velarik. And like in hearing those words every year, Kayak Nisan would come, and it was like a very heavy day for me because there were times in my life where like I could identify with feeling like I can't identify with what the Rebbe meant by Lahava Velarik, but in my life, I was feeling like a certain sense of Lahava Velarik. Like everything is just like I don't feel like I'm showing up to life how Hashem needs me to. Like very downtrodden in my um perspective of life. And I was almost like, is that what the Rebbe's saying? Because the Rebbe has done so much more, like infinitely more. And if the Rebbe could say that, then maybe I really have a right to be identifying as the Hevel, like as this like brokenness, as a light that's not showing up in the way it should be in this world that Hashem has called me to, you know? And so like it was a very heavy day. I think it was more like I was saying before, it was the way I was seeing it from the perspective of that I was coming from, you know? And I think not this year, the year before, it was Kayak Nisan. And I have like, I told you, I have so many teachers. So I called one of like my mentor teachers and I said to her like, listen, I'm reading the Sikha again and like, I just can't wrap my head around it. Like, what is the Rebbe saying? Like, how could the Rebbe say that? The whole everything we have in Yiddishkeit today is the Rebbe's accomplishments. Like in the way the world has changed and the way Shluchas has changed and Torah has spread out. Like how could this be a thing? And in our conversation, like as I was talking to her, I was like, you know what? I have clarity. I don't understand this, but there are like complete volumes of the Kodei Sichos that if I tried to engage with, I could understand. So let me try to focus on the things I can understand. And the one line I can't understand, sometimes there are things you don't understand. And I'm just going to hold space for that. And like maybe 3 months later, I was listening to a podcast. And in this podcast, they were sharing, like parenthetically, it wasn't even connected to the concept that was necessarily being shared. At the very end, he was like, I want to just share this one concept. And he starts talking about the Hevel Volarik. And he shared actually a teaching that Rabbi Shachat the Rosh, you're related to him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Okay, so
answer.
that he had taught about this, about these words, and about like the sense that basically in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe also mentions that words lahevel when it's talking about the Beinoni. Like, why was the Beinoni brought into this world to toil? Like, is it all right? Lahevel, the same idea. And basically, it's talking about this concept of dir b'tachtenim, the sense that like unless we stop and make this ours, like Hashem could give us all that we need, but we have to like integrate. We have to take the tools and do it. The Rebbe is saying, I did everything I can. Now it's up to you. Like, can you take what I've taught you? Can you take the teachings? Can you take what's available to you and like make it yours? Do what you can today. Like to the best you can. Like feel empowered. What could Mushka do today to be living a life of Mashiach? And to me, to each of us, it looks so personal and so different. And somehow, when I heard that teaching, it was like so comforting, to the point that this year when Kayak Nisan came, like I was like, I want to have it for bringing in my house in honor of this day. Like it felt like a warm,
Mm,
encouraging, like powerful day in a sense that like can you reflect to how much Mashiach you have brought into your life in this past year? And
mm.
can you reflect on the opportunities in Mashiach you have in the coming year? And it was such a different experience. And I was like, it was almost when this year came that I was able to see like how incredible Hashem's hand was in that little, in that journey. That was very, very specific and topic wise, But when I
Wow.
saw that, there was a certain
Wow, that's so
like,
interesting. Yeah, it's
uh,
funny. I feel like this year also, I like ended up having like a little Farbrengen with my students, and we were talking about how, like to me, what that idea is about is like we can go through our lives just like sort of like relying on this sense of pride. Like we love sort of feeling a sense of pride of being Jewish, of being a chassid, of being Chabad, of being like whatever our identity is like, and we have so much pride for it. And like we walk around and people like can point us and say like, oh, you guys have this quality and that quality because, right? And it's almost like we're just sort of like, and the question I was like asking them was like, does that drive us to action or does that drive us to complacency? Like what does pride do for us? And I think sort of like what you're saying is like the Rebbe is saying like everything I've done is lehevel v'lirik until you don't just use that as a point of pride, but you use it as a point of like driving you to action and like doing something and using a
yeah,
mission. Like can you be all those things you're proud of because of your identity? Can you be that instead of just
yeah,
relying on the pride? So anyway, yeah, that's very
yeah.
powerful.
Like, can you live it?
Yeah,
Like it, like you know. I
yeah.
remember like our high school interview. Rabbi Begun, he used to say the same mashal to each person. Like a feather. If a chicken has dust caught in his feather, you could try to clean it out for him, but all he has to do is give one ruffle of his feathers, and all the dust is gone.
Mm,
Like what we can do for ourselves, nobody can really
mm,
do for us.
mm,
But with that, like like Hashem also can bless us with the abilities and the right channels of support, like because there are people who are trying so hard and still feel themselves like struggling with the same things again and again, and so I think there's definitely a balance of like being able to like step into the invitation and use the tools that we have and also ask Hashem for the support when we need it, and like that's
Yeah.
where I find Torah study so powerful because like it uplifts everything, not only your Torah study, but also your davening. Like my davening is different because like, oh, when you're saying a certain word, it reminds you of something you learned. And all of a sudden like that turns into a different experience for you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So I want to speak to you about something else, which is, you were saying you're very involved in like talking, teaching, and talking about Torah Mishpacha, and I think sometimes there can be this approach that people have when when we talk about like going back to the sources and really learning about these things in depth, and a lot of these topics that are like somewhat sensitive for women, and like really giving them like access to as much knowledge and education as possible. And some people are sort of hesitant to that because they feel that like when you like sometimes too much knowledge can be a dangerous thing, and sometimes the question is like, will it lead women to be more serious about halacha, or can it sometimes lead women to be less careful about halacha because they have more awareness of like what's the strict requirement, and what's sort of a minhag, or whatever else it is, and they might not be as sort of careful with all the stringencies that are involved in keeping those halachas. Um, and also like often when we're like sort of learning the whole background of how things developed, sometimes it can lead to a sense of cynicism, right? Amongst people who are learning, and I think that's a real concern. And you could actually see that in the classroom or in shiurim that you give, where like it can have that impact sometimes. And the question is, I guess number one, like what's your take on that in general? Like, is there a point when too much knowledge can be a dangerous thing, and should we be limiting like how much knowledge we give to whom at what time? And when we are sharing that knowledge, what are some ways we can do it in order to avoid that cynicism, or that that sort of response of like trying to utilize that knowledge in a way that might be, I guess, unwarranted, not what we would want.
Yeah. I mean, I can only answer to that from my own personal experience. Like, meaning I'm sure there are people with a lot more experience and holding, roles in our community that I would turn to and have lots of respect for. When it comes to your first question, like where you were saying, are there time when sources could be like we should be careful about what we're sharing? Is that what you're saying? I think there's a first of all, like in teaching Taras Mishpacha, like I believe that so what brought me to Taras Mishpacha probably was like an innate connection. I think the feminine energy is the most holy and sensitive energy that exists in the cosmos. Like there's something so powerful about the feminine force and so unique and so special. And I think one of my like biggest like motivations in being involved in this mitzvah is for people to realize like the mitzvahs that are involved in Taras Mishpacha are actually the greatest gift Hashem could have given us. Like imagine the creator of some sort of really delicate, fragile, most incredible substance. And I was going to say, if you want to take care of the substance, there's one very unique way to do it. And here's how. That doesn't take away from the time that, yes, there's frustrations and there's difficulties and it could be hard. But that sense of realizing that we all innately know that. Like we have this sense of like a spiritual connection, a spiritual understanding, a spiritual yearning. And if we look at Taras Mishpacha like that, and we teach people with the sense of like they also have that innate understanding and this is what they want to get from it, it's a very unique experience. And I think some of us were taught, and not myself because I was blessed to be taught in a very unique way, but I think some people were taught with it as very like dry. Here's what you do and here's what you don't do, and here's when you have to do it and here's when you don't have to do it. And so like it almost got like this a stigma around it, and what I found that in many times in talking to women, people are like, where do you get this perspective around it? Like from the sources and from the people that I was taught, but like the sense that this is like so beautiful. It is so special. It's so regal. It's so like holy. There's really, like I was saying, this idea of transcendence. Like I think the feminine energy is the holiest of energies because by our innate makeup and by the role that we're called to in this world, we're called to a space of transcendence constantly, right? Like it feels so great to go meditate on a memory you just learned on a mountaintop. Like how beautiful could that be? And there are times that we can, but I would I would say that there are times that showing up for my child is actually a higher sense of oneness with Hashem, bring us back to that mimer of like Atmos, than meditating on the mimer. Because meditating on the mimer, I feel holy. And being there for my child, I am holy. And I feel like that's what's called a woman in general. So in every element of Taras HaMishpacha, it's that again. It's an opportunity to really channel the infinite and be holy. So if I could teach Taras HaMishpacha from that perspective, if I could invite the youngest of girls who are still in high school, I don't think the sources are too much for them. It's just an opportunity for them to realize like this is an opportunity to like experience your femininity. And with that to realize again, I think it's so important, the idea of like spiritual bypass, like how does this feel in you? Because sometimes people will be like, well, what does halacha say about this? When I think it's so important to first say, like, what do you say about this? Because you could call a Rav and you need help with something and get a heter and whatever personal items that are going on in your life. The Rabbanim understand and there are heterim available, but not most of the time the Rabbis are going to ask you, okay, like tell me what's going on in your own personal life. I mean, if you do have that kind of relationship with a Rav, that's really special and that's beautiful. But sometimes a woman has to see like what's going on for me. Like, can I make this a personal mitzvah? It's not, does the mitzvah like take away all sense of like autonomy? Like I have to be a very active participant. And I think that's become the reality for all elements of our life. When people's health, it used to be whatever the doctor says, right? Like now people have become active participants in their health. Is this good for me? Is it not good for me? Let me do my own research. That's how the world is at large. So the fact is we all have so much more information. Yes, the information you research on your own health could also be a little bit tricky if you don't navigate it properly. So too with sources. I think if you don't have the right support in studying the sources, if you're not coming from the healthy perspective in advance, then like I said, when I learned a source, I felt like it was yelling at me. When I came back at it a few years later, it felt encouraging, right? Another time I had that was like learning Shar B'tachon. I learned it in a time when I was experiencing anxiety and I couldn't feel its encouragement. When I came back to it a few years later, where I was in a more regulated nervous system, I could read it as encouraging. So I think so too with any sources we're going to learn. Like, yeah, having the right teacher and having the right environment is really important. What I find could be a challenge, and I still think this is a challenge, is when you're talking about very sensitive elements in halacha in a group setting. It's very, very complicated because what happens is I remember like when the halacha reviews, let's say at Kinos HaShloches, years ago, and the Rabbanim would say like, this is like, it's a personal shaila, ask your personal shaila separately. Or there were times when the Rabbanim would tell somebody, if you repeat this heter to somebody else, your heter is no longer valid, right? I haven't heard that in recent times from people saying things like that, but when there's a group setting, and one person is sharing, I think this is halachically okay, I heard it's halachically okay, and this person, we don't know what one person's going to take from that little side conversation. When it's very, very source-based, it's very clear what's in the sources. But when it comes to practical halacha, and then there's like an inner conversation, and the more intimate the halachic discussion is regarding, the more careful we have to be. That's my personal perspective on it. Like, when it comes to halachic guidelines, like if there's a teacher who's, teaching the sources and is very like clear on what the halacha is from what the sources are, and might leave opportunity to say these are the shilas that could come up, make sure to ask your Rav because it's very, very personal. I think once there's like that inner conversation, I think it could be very complicated, and it's almost like the facilitator's role to like shut it down. Like, this is a very personal discussion. This is something I would refer you to speak to your personal Rav and find out the guidance for you, because in that space there could be confusion, and it's hard because you don't unlearn things, like I remember one of my wise mentors said something, I'm probably going to misquote it, but the idea that like the something that we learned pervades our knowledge long after we forgot the information we learned. It changes our perspective around things. So that sense, I think there is room for caution. But when you're learning from the actual source, like Torah is nitzchis, and like you were saying before, there's the raw source. Sometimes it could be uncomfortable, yeah, but I also feel like there's a comfort in knowing there's an ultimate truth. Like, I might not be there yet, but knowing that there's an ultimate truth that has never changed, like how much more comforting could that be?
Right. So it sounds like you're saying like having like the right foundation and like I guess sort of like the overarching like premise or atmosphere in the context of which you're learning is really important here. And I think, yeah, I totally relate to that. Like there could be like the same idea or the same source that like with a different context can sound totally different. Like even just something as basic, I'm thinking to the Peru course, but like the notion that
Yeah.
like women don't have a chiyuv in Peru, right?
Yeah.
So like to some people they hear that and they're just like that feels so offensive, right? Because it's like, what are you saying? Like I'm carrying the pregnancy and giving birth and like nursing the child and taking care of them and you're telling me I don't have I don't have a mitzvah, like that's not my mitzvah. What does that even mean, right? And I remember when we like put out the book, like one of our editors like read like the first line, which was like sort of the introduction to the book, which was talking about this idea that women don't have chiyuv, and she was like, "This sounds so horrible." And I think, and one of the things I was telling her was like, when you take the course and you like see that in context, or even if you just have like a general context for Torah and the general sort of view that Torah might have on women, or the way like women might be valued or seen in general in Yiddishkeit, like you just sort of take that in a different way, right? And I think it could actually, you can kind of like also approach it with a sense of curiosity of like, what is the meaning of that? And what is that telling us about the unique relationship that women do have to Peru that's different than saying it's a chiyuv. There's something else here that it's trying to tell us in that. So yeah, I think that's just one example, but yeah, I totally feel like that's very valuable. And in terms of like things being said in a group setting and how they could be applied, I guess like that could be like a little tricky sometimes because, often there are sources, let's say there's shalos and shuvas and there's like, there are halachic sort of sources that will talk about, more lenient opinions or more hatarim or things like that. And, it sounds to me like what you're saying is that when someone's giving halachic guidance for an individual situation and other people in the crowd are not in that situation, that could be confusing for them. And I guess that can be a little tricky. Like what is, because often learning things from the source can also have that impact in a sense, right? Where like the sources themselves may sort of imply that there's room for leniency, there's room for hatarim in certain areas. And, do we limit that people's access to that because we feel like that might have that effect? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say limit it, but I would say intentionally choose. You
Mm,
know, like we have to be intentional. I'm really blessed to have a wonderful like women's group here in Playa del Rey, and it's like
mm,
just so many special like spiritually attuned women that I get to study with. But there takes intention in what we choose to share and how we choose to study it, and the same sources that we might share in one class setting, we might choose differently. Like I recently had the opportunity to do a halacha review at somebody's house, and before I
mm,
went to do the halacha review, I called one of the rabbanim and I asked him like, okay, if I'm doing a review, like how would I prioritize what to teach? And I was actually surprised because the woman whose house I was going to, I kind of expected she was going to bring a certain crowd. And it ended up that there was a different kind of group of women. But he had told me what to do. And I was like, I'm going to go with that. And what was incredible, back to like Hashem's guidance and like being open to it, it was exactly what that group of women needed to hear. Like
mm.
start with the most basics, like knowing how to count your days, knowing the importance of doing a hafsek Torah effectively. Like those were like the most important elements of reviewing the cycle of Taras Mishpacha. And to me, like, yeah, so I would have to know what are the things that are important to share in this setting and what are not important. So I think as the guide of the session, there's a lot of responsibility in that, in knowing like
Yeah,
what to share and to choose thoughtfully, because not every it's not that I'm hiding things from you. It's like I'm
yeah,
guiding you. So therefore, that kind of
yeah,
guidance, like in Kal Echanech Ma'adracha, where the Frierdiker Rebbe talks about like knowing your student. Like we have to really know what would serve this person best to help them feel encouraged and supported, because there are sources that could tell you, from one extreme to the next extreme.
yeah.
Just you have to research it and you'll find it, but it's
Yeah,
there.
100%. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right. Like, I think, we can't hide things from people, and we live in an age where people have access to all kinds of information. So,
Yeah.
like, nothing is, we can't like limit people's access to information. That's just not the age that we live in.
No.
But you're right. Like, if you are a facilitator of knowledge and learning, and like we said, like certain things, like hearing something outside of its context can like give a warped impression of what it's saying. And I think you have to be intentional about the way you're presenting information in a way that gives the right context.
Yeah.
If you're in that position of facilitating like knowledge for other
Yeah.
people. Yeah, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Um, Yeah, and I think also for ourselves, like maybe this goes back to what we were saying before, like when we encounter things that are like sort of challenging for us to understand or resonate with, being able to say like, okay, well maybe I need to give myself context, right? Like if there was like this, I learned this halacha that sounds so extreme or sounds so strange, and like maybe I need to go back down to this to the background of that and like understand that area of halacha more thoroughly, give myself that context to be able to put that into more of a context.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
can I open myself up to seeing like what is it here to teach me? Like I don't always know the answer to that question, and there's a certain sense of like that's what I've been thinking about recently is like an intentional not surrender from a place of like of losing, but surrender from a place of like openness. Like there's so much more here than I see with just my eyes. Like can I be open to that? Can I be open to what there is for me to learn? And in that space, it's incredible what kind of things will show up and how you're like open to Hashem's guidance, and all of a sudden you turn on a shear and it's talking to exactly my inner struggle of today. Like just when we're open with curiosity, then the opportunities are kind of endless of where that's going to come from. But definitely, like it takes a lot of intention. And yeah, that we are in an age of knowledge, and I think it's a gift. And
yeah,
and even for ourselves, like if we come across, what I found interesting is also sometimes I'll across something and I'm like so sure I know what's the right next move.
mm,
And then like I have to take a step back and Hashem could show me something else. And I might be surprised at first, but then I'm like, okay, there's obviously something here for me to discover. And that's why Hashem has brought me to this place, not wherever I had originally thought I was meant to be.
yeah, yeah. I think also there's so many things that I've learned like I don't know, like from when I was young, that like always like kind of disturbed me a little bit, but like I kind of put it on the back burner, and then like sometimes even like years and years later or decades later, I don't know, like I'll like hear something that will like totally change that my understanding of that one line, and I'm like, wow, like this is what I needed to hear all this time. Yeah, and I think like the same way like we sort of approach Torah with a sense of like trust, so to speak, that like Torah is true. Torah is here to like offer us something in our lives, offer us this ability to transcend ourselves and be in touch with something much truer and more real. And I think at the same time, like having the sense of trust of the Jewish woman, like you said, of like the
Yeah.
fact that women have this innate sense and desire to want to connect to her in a really sincere and real way, and how like
Yeah.
assuming
And
that.
I really like, yeah, and I believe that like if someone has a perspective, like if it feels heavy and it feels dry, like I would totally like encourage you to go out and like try to find sources or teachers or classes that could like it's a mitzvah you're engaged with pretty often, like to soften it, to allow it to become a connection that you have that's more engaging from a place of like feeling connected to a gift rather than a heavy burden.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to shift the conversation a little bit to talk about um, women and Torah learning and like the sense that women have like I guess a feeling of a belonging in the world of Torah. And I had this like one anecdote that I remember from seminary. I don't know why this sticks out in my mind, but we were walking out of a class that we just had. We were learning a mimer, like some famous mimer, like Basi Lagani or something like that. And I remember overhearing a friend of mine saying, this is great. Like now we'll have an understanding of what our husbands are learning when they learn this mimer. And I remember my head thinking like, wait, what? Like, what about you? Like, what about your learning? Isn't that significant and important that you should know the mimer for yourself? And I think what this anecdote sort of illustrates is the sense that women can sometimes have that like, women don't have a mitzvah Talmud Torah, right? So it's sort of like learning Torah is like a man's mitzvah, and in some ways we're kind of like the cheerleaders or the spectators in this whole world of Torah study. And yeah, I'd love to like hear your thoughts about that sentiment and what might be the fallout of like having a culture like that, and are there ways that we can kind of like shift that or create a different way of thinking about our relationship to Torah?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I like to me that thought, like that comment almost feels foreign. I was blessed, like my mother would learn. I would see her learning like on Shabbos morning with my father. So it didn't seem like learning was something that just seemed like women do learn. Like didn't seem foreign to me. The thing that I did find was a challenge was like life. Like how do you make the time to learn? And I remember so clearly we had like a bringing at my grandmother's house. I don't remember what the special day was, and I had three kids then. Baruch Hashem, my oldest was like three little boys. I think my oldest must have been just about four or something. And my aunt was talking about davening every day and I don't know about learning. I know she learns a lot. And I was like, how, like, I don't even know how to get out of my house like in the morning to get everybody dressed and make sure everybody ate and is clothed and you're talking about like davening every day like where like how could like I was looking at her almost like you're not seeing the struggle. She had more children than I did, but I was like you're not seeing the struggle of a young mother. Like how could you even share it? But I left this for bringing and I was like pushing back at her. Like I remember very clearly being like, you don't get what it means to be a woman if you can sit here and say we must daven every day. Like I don't even know where you come from. And I left and I pushed back at her like I did. But I think it planted something in my mind. And I was like, hold
Mm,
on. Like I could daven. And I don't remember what I was doing davening wise and I can't remember. But
mm,
because we forget. I think that a lot of parts of childbearing, like when they say you forget labor pains, you also forget other things. That's how we, keep engaged in a healthy way. But at that, something shifted because from then, like it wasn't even like it was a sense of like almost like self-respect.
mm,
Like to me, it's not that learning isn't a woman's thing, but it's like how can a woman prioritize learning is what I find the
mm.
challenge. Like
Yeah.
and I don't think it's only for a mother. Like in all senses of our feminine world, sometimes we could think like our role seems different. It seems like it's calling us to very mundane tasks and to provide for others and to care and to show comfort. So where can I find the time to prioritize that learning or to prioritize my davening? And I think like I don't. It was a slow shift because it says like it could be at first I was just doing it because I felt like okay, well you're supposed to do it, and I'm a very like good at spiritual bypassing. So it was like, okay, you're supposed to daven, then daven it is, and you'll figure out how to make it work. But with time, like Hashem has blessed me to see that it's not a duty. It's like, thank you for these few moments of like connection because I need them. So like, I need this like time to feel one with the Abishter that's within me, and to be able to like access that space. So it's kind of like that Torah study, the same thing. Like, I need to bring myself back to a grounded space so I can show up for myself, for my marriage, for my children, for my shluchas. Like, and so these are like the channels to that call of divinity. Like,
Mm,
how it's through study of Torah, and there are so many. Like I said before, there are so many incredible outlets, and there's not one way for everybody.
mm,
But what I would say is like just if you haven't found, I love that the line from the Alter Rebbe where he says like Tam Ruki Tev Havaya or Zuchvat
mm,
as the Eberster is good. I don't think I quoted it completely, but the idea that like Hashem is goodness and it's sweet. So if you're not tasting it yet, then you haven't tasted enough of it or the right version of it. Like just keep searching because it is sweet and it is so incredibly healing and encouraging that like
mm,
just find the right, maybe it's the right sefer or it's the right teacher or the right chavrusa. Like there are so many ways, but by opening ourselves up to it, it's infinitely beautiful. It really is.
mm,
And we are like listen, my mother learns, and she's also a very big advocate of women's role in Yiddishkeit. So there's certain
mm,
sichas she would just repeat again and again. But the format's in Torah, right? It says Kaisemar leVeis Yaakov v'Saged levnei Yisrael. Like it was first Beis Yaakov. Beis Yaakov is a woman. So
mm.
if we needed any better proof that
Right, right.
Torah is not, it is, it's the woman's space, and the more we like lean into it, and the more we open ourselves up to what's available to us, like
Mm,
our life becomes uplifted. I like I actually enjoy teaching like small children also. So we were once talking about this idea of like where does the Chatchel Rebbe, like the idea of like come from? So I was learning a sikha about it, was the idea of Shema Yisrael, like when realizing we're powered by infinity.
mm,
So you try to teach a child like there's a huge mess on the floor. Either you could pick up each piece with your hand, or you take something that's powered by like a plug, and in 1 second the whole thing is clean. So like so too with my energetic field, like I could either be working with that one grain of sand at a time, or I could be plugged into something so powerful that whatever I'm facing, I'm powered by infinity. So I have the tools and the capacity and the encouragement and the support and even the surrender, because I think that comes from a very deep connection to Hashem. Like when I'm able to know I'm connected, then you can let go. I know, like, okay, it's okay because I'm held. So I don't have to hold on so strong. Like I'm being held in this embrace, and we're good. So like it's ours for sure. It's ours. Like there's no question. And I think that women are realizing
Mm,
that more and more.
yeah,
I do think so. I mean,
100%.
look at the incredible organization that you've made, and like even let's say for me, I thought Gemara was like off limits. Like okay, I learned it. I was actually thinking about it before our call because I learned in seminary and like I think it took us like 6 months to learn a page, and I was like, okay, like boys learn this in like days. This is ridiculous, you know?
Mm,
And like, and the best part was that the segment ended with the word teku, and I
mm.
was like so taken by that. I'm like, you're gonna tell me that we just
Spent six
spent
months
six
on this
months
question, and the answer is Tiku, right?
exactly. It's funny because I was just thinking about it today when I was like, okay, we're gonna talk about Torah, and I was thinking like now as an adult looking back, like what a lesson that was to me. Like
Mm.
there are certain things in our life the answer is teku. Like Hashem is gonna show us, you know, but like
Yeah, just if
that's
anyone
it.
doesn't know, Tiku means
Oh
Tishbi.
yeah.
Um,
Yavai,
what's
maybe?
you have
Yavai? No.
something? Yeah, basically it's like
Like
oh, you
when
have enough
Mashiach
to answer
comes.
all the questions. Yeah,
Exactly.
which
Like
basically it's like an unresolved question. Yeah, which is like
it's an
yeah, when you first
unresolved
encounter it,
question.
you're like, wait, what? There's no answer.
Yeah, but like when we were learning in your course and you're like learning Gemara, and my son walked by and he's like, "Mommy, it's not so hard. You just need to learn how to punctuate your Gemara." So he sat down and punctuated the Gemara for me. And
That's
then like
awesome.
by the time the course was over, I was like, "Oh, this isn't so scary." And like it felt so incredible that you could be learning something new and how to navigate a different kind of source than you're familiar with. And like that's why sometimes I think like choosing Torah study, like I think it's important to learn Torah study, especially if our Torah study time slots are limited that are truly encouraging to us, you know?
Mm, yeah, yeah. I feel like yeah, exactly. Like when life, and I think like the struggles of life are really real and like
Yeah.
real challenges that like makes it very very difficult. And I think you're right. You have to be like really really focused about like what am I going to spend my time on things that are really going to like invigorate me in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I think what's incredible also about what you've done is like you're creating courses where people can learn how to learn. And I think that's like an infinite gift because like now someone feels confident to go out and take a source and realize like it's mine, you know,
Mm,
because I think people would feel it's mine if they had the tools to say this is mine because I know how to navigate this. This isn't foreign to me. And I think like
totally.
allowing people to go into the source and learning it and all the tools you create for it is just it's so amazing. Like during the whole pandemic, I thought like our school system is going to take a big shift. And it didn't really, but the thought came to me that it would eventually because everybody was home, right? And they're going to have to go back. There's going to be a difference. And
Mm,
the difference that I thought would be important was exactly what you've created, like opportunity, because basically, what does it say when Mashiach comes? I think it's the last like line of the Rambam. I wrote it down so I want to forget, but it's the idea like kol adam el adas es
it's a
Hashem
Shantalban.
bilvad, right?
Mm,
Like so, we're living in times of Mashiach, and look, that's why we have Instacart. Target pickup, Target returns from your car. Like when I had my first child, that was a dream. Like if I could just pull up somewhere and someone's gonna put the groceries in my car, like I didn't think that
right.
was possible. Never mind bring them to my house, you know. But
Mm,
this is reality. So like all the rest of that time, what is it there for? It's to learn how to know Hashem. And to know Hashem, I think means to know the Hashem that's within us.
mm,
Like it means like to really like make Hashem a reality for me in my life. And look at our children. AI has become a reality. So artificial intelligence is readily at their fingertips. So the only thing they really still need is the opportunity to know Hashem, to know how to access Hashem, to know how to learn on their own, to be able to use like the capacities that Hashem has gifted them with fully. And the way they're going to do that is by having the ability to take this and make to feel like it's theirs. And for women, the same thing. If we could take this Torah and feel like it's mine, it's like this is a gift from Hashem to me. Like when you say Avas Eilam before Shema every day, like it's just so beautiful when you're saying to Hashem like all the things we ask. Hashem chose us with love, and all the Torah that we have is here to like open up our eyes and be able to see the world from that space. Like I was chosen with love to be able to just be a channel to divinity in every step that I take. And the more Torah that we learn, specifically Hasidus, I think the more we're able to really sense that and like allow this to become our reality.
yeah. Wow. Something that just reminds me of is like I have a 6-year-old who's learning how to read now, and like it's just like I'm watching her like just realize that the world opens up to her when she knows how to read. Like she can just like even not even just reading books, but just like a package of something, or like just figuring out like the dials on the settings that she can turn the knob to, like she knows she can read it. And it's like this whole new level of independence and like independent exploration that opens up. And I feel like for us in our Torah learning to be able to read, like not just obviously read the letters, but be able to like comprehend the words for ourselves, it opens up a totally different world. And it gives us a sense of like, yes, like I can like independently explore this in a way that it's mine and I'm not just like receiving it secondhand. I think it's, yeah, life changing.
Yeah, it is. I think like it gives us access. I know this is going to sound a little extreme, but
Yeah.
to Ruach HaKodesh, like what I mean by
Mm,
that is like by learning, you're literally like what you're saying. Like you all of a sudden open up a source, and Hashem is talking to you through the Torah that you're learning. Like
mm,
the guidance that you need to know for today is right here in front of you, and like
mm.
it's talking to you. And yeah, it's. I love how you're saying that. These letters, like everything you see now, now you're all of a sudden like reading the world differently.
Yes.
Every part of the world,
Yes.
it's a uplifted experience. Like literally, like just like infinite. There's infinite possibilities, and there's infinite like it allows
Yeah.
us to really start to live Mashiach in every day
Yeah. Yeah.
in a really beautiful way.
Yeah. What's the change you want to see in the way that women in the Frum community connect to Torah?
Wow. I think to see it as a gift, like
Mm,
to realize like imagine there's a gift in front of you, like who would push it away? Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Like there's this incredible gift. All you have to do is like open it up and
mm.
taste it. And like look at it as just that, an opportunity, a gift. It's not a heavy burden, it's not a task you have to tend to. And honestly, I feel like I see that so much. Like there's so much Torah learning happening, so much more than there ever was amongst women. And I think
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
incredible. Like I remember what you were showing like pictures of like an event that you had done like locally. Like it's so beautiful to see. And I think that like our neshamas have it. Like it's very like I told you I had this women's class here, and what's amazing to me is I feel like neshamas download information without having to learn it. I know
Mm,
this might sound like meaning we could talk about Hasidic concepts. They've never opened a Hasidic sefer, but it's all
mm,
true to them.
mm.
And it's like, and we're having a complete discussion about the Chatchila River. You know what I mean? And like what that means in our personal life, like and it's real, it's a reality because it's available to us all, and everybody makes the time to come back again next week because we're literally connecting over insight. Like
Yeah.
what could be more beautiful? It's truly a gift. And like I said before, like if you haven't found the gift in it and the softness in it, first of all, like be soft on yourself. Like don't feel
Mm,
like don't push yourself like why am I not getting it? Because like again, like I said back in the beginning, like the feminine energy is the softest, most delicate thing. We need to treat ourselves with that softness. Like okay, it's hard that I haven't found that space yet in Terra, but like I'm curious to see like where is Hashem going to direct me to it, and I can even daven to Hashem like help me find the path in terror that speaks to me and then encourages me and then allows me to feel your loving embrace.
right.
And Hashem will open it up, like be direct about what you're looking for, And all of a sudden the chavrusa is going to pop up, the teacher, the course that you wanted, it's going
Yeah.
to be there, and you can take from it the podcast you want to listen to, whatever it might show up as, it will definitely be there for you. Like one of the lines in Davening that has been talking to me a lot is like in Haigu we say like Harchev picha v'amaleu. Like Hashem says
Mm,
like open up your mouth and I'll fill it, and that idea like sometimes we just have to ask Hashem for what you want. And what I saw in actually one of the Siddurim, like the Tzivos Hashem Siddur, it has like little explanations. It says sometimes we ask Hashem and then sometimes we ask Hashem to give us the ability for what we need. Like we could also ask Hashem for that. Like give me the ability to learn your Torah. Give me the ability to see a side of Torah that I haven't seen yet. You
yeah.
know, like don't be specific of what you're looking for, and Hashem will definitely like bring that to you in a way that you can really embrace it and see it as what it is meant to be.
Yeah, I feel like we see it a lot in Dominating. Like there's that language of like Baharani Nubsarasacha, like illuminate our eyes with
Yeah,
your Torah. Saint Chalkin
yeah,
Nubsarasacha, like we're asking Hashem to like give us the ability to like see Torah for what it is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I love that in Shabbos davening. That part where we say like that, now I'm forgetting the exact words, but basically the idea in we say like we should be like you should like really just allow us to connect to your Torah fully in a way of like alignment and like your Yeshua, your salvation to be my salvation. Like that idea, like really. And again, I think that Torah and in Chassidus, we talk about this so much. Torah and tefillah are so aligned. Like sometimes your Torah could be considered as tefillah, right? When it's before davening in preparation for davening. And you see that, like the more you learn, the more everything becomes alive. Like it's
Yeah.
those letters, like you're saying, all of a sudden you're just, it's illuminated. It's a different experience completely.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to close off with two questions. One is,
Okay.
can you share a Torah thought or idea that you learned that you can't unlearn? Like it just changed how you see yourself or see the world?
Hmm. So many of them. Um, okay, I'll tell you, because I was saying before I did, you know which one talks to me a lot? A very touching concept to me was the idea when Yosef sees his brothers, when he finally reveals himself, right? And they're full of so much shame. And he turns to them and he says, like, "Lo atam shlachtam asihena ki halakim v'samni la'av l'paru la'adam l'chol beisai," right? That idea, like every place in our life that we were sent, like we were sent here by Hashem. And why? To become like a king and a prince. So whenever like I'm faced with that concept has been such an encouraging concept because when things come up and they come up, it's like a sense of like Hashem has put me here today to like don a new diamond on my crown. Like what is it here that I need to discover?
Mm,
I was never, I was sent. We weren't abandoned. And I think that's something that I've learned and heard many, many times in many of the shiurim that I've listened to. And I think it's been such an encouraging thought and an encouraging message.
mm,
Like that really like comes to me again and again. And also like within Terra, I feel like there are themes that just like stick with me at certain times in my life. You know, like certain times in my life, let's say that's what's going to come up. Another time there'll be something else. But for right
yeah.
now, like that idea is powerful because it's interesting when the other one that's similar is like when Mordechai comes to Esther and asks her to go to Achashverosh, and he says to her, "Mia de'ayim la'es hazayis higata lamalchus," you know, and like there's also a certain sense of like curiosity there, and also like a surrender. Like we don't know, but I think that like in that sense when Mordechai says that to Esther, and I find that they're somewhat connected because they're almost like two sides of the same coin. Like it's a different perspective of the same thing. But here Mordechai is inviting her to go to Achashverosh, and it's going to be hard, right? But he says like maybe this is the whole reason you've reached Malchus. And sometimes I think to myself, like, it's those moments that mi idea, like, that we really surrender to Hashem, that we reach our Malchus. Like, that we're able to just be like, this, I had to come here. I had to be like, I'm not sure why, but I know Hashem has directed me here. And in that space, again, we're going to be able to, like, welcome in something very great for
Mhm.
ourselves and for the world.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, it's
It should
beautiful.
always be b'chesed u'v'rachman in a
Exactly. Yeah, those are
beautiful
both
way,
like
you
very
know?
striking like lines. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question is, can you give us an underrated learning suggestion? Something that a woman might not know about or might not think is for them, but you think that they might really love?
There's so many. I like I said, I think back to what you're saying, like look at it as a gift and be curious, like what's gonna talk to you. Like
Mm,
don't force yourself into a box that doesn't fit for you. Like just be
yeah.
curious. How do I feel doing this? I've found so many like podcasts. Like for me, the my most I spend a lot of time in the car and doing driving carpools, and then a lot of like I'm very physically engaged in my schedule. It's just how it is. So I
Mm,
find listening to podcasts is something I could do
yeah.
um, often, and I'm surprised by how much I actually intake just by listening because I'm doing,
Yeah.
let's say, the dishes, dinner, whatever, but I'm still listening, and somehow it touches you and it goes someplace. Creating like a chavrusa, if you have like a disciplined amount of time with a person that you might not have even been in touch with for a while, I also find really special. Um, like just to learn, connect, and yeah, you might do some talking on the side, but it's fine. It's part of the learning experience. It's going to make it something that you're going to come back to again and again.
Totally.
Um, and yeah, I don't know if this is what you're looking for or something more
Yeah.
specific, but also like I think the other thing is in-person shiurim are really powerful.
Mm,
And so like when an opportunity arises and if you could make it work, like when I came to the class, like I think it was like an hour and a half after the first time, I was like, Oh my goodness, this was incredible. I didn't realize how incredible it would feel like to literally disconnect from everything for an hour and a half and just be learning Torah. Like it was like totally revitalizing. Like it was just such an incredible experience. And I think that like if there are opportunities and you're like, I don't know if it's for me, like sometimes I say, you don't even know who you are. You're still just discovering. So go out there, try it, see. It might just be for you, and there might be something really special. Like I find myself in the in-person relationship. I'm usually in a teacher's role when I'm
Mm,
somewhere because it's hard for me to get out. But this year, I've been blessed with a few opportunities to be a student in an in-person situation, and it's so beautiful. It's so special because whenever you're learning, you're just and you're at you're experiencing a whole new level. So if something comes up and it's in the neighborhood, try it. You never know. You might be really happy you did.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally I'm a big believer in like forming relationships and community through learning. It's something that's really, really powerful and like it's irreplaceable. And I think as convenient as podcasts are, and I think I've listened to them all the time and I think it's extremely valuable and has given me so much opportunity to learn in ways that I never would have otherwise. And at the
Yeah.
same time, like making the effort to actually have an in-person learning experience is irreplaceable. Like that,
Yeah.
the connections and relationships that you build through that is really, yeah, I feel like that's where the real like transformation happens. So
Yeah, and I like specifically the podcasts that are like inside. Like I like being able to listen to Shiram that we're learning something like inside, like because I think there's also like you said many times something about learning in the source that's really powerful.
mm,
Like hearing the actual words of a text, there is something to it as
yeah,
well. But like I said, I think that like whenever I see the things that you make in the community, I wish I could join. But I'm like, it's just amazing. There's something so powerful. Like this is what the Nation Tzidkanios were doing. Like in
yeah,
Mitzrayim, there's no question. They were like I think when we talk about the tambourines, they didn't make tambourines in their own homes. They were sitting together making tambourines in a group. You know,
right, right,
so
right,
this
right.
is what we're doing. We're getting together and we're learning Torah, and there's it's incredible. It's really like the greatest gift. And again, I have so much respect for the institution you've created and for this continued work. Like the gifts you're giving these high school girls by teaching them how to learn on their own and how to make chassidus personal. Like I don't think there is a number you could put on the worth of that. Like it's an infinite gift that is going to keep giving to themselves for the rest of their lives and then to every person they encounter. It's just incredible, really, really so beautiful.
Thank you.
So thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my honor.
It's
And yeah, I really appreciate
yeah,
that. Mushka, thank
it's
you
really
so much.
special.
Thank you so much for coming on and for making the time. And I feel like there was so much we spoke about that was really powerful and impactful. And I loved hearing your perspective. So thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to see you again and looking forward to joining another course
Yeah,
with
hopefully we can find another
Hashem's
opportunity
help.
to learn again. Yeah.
Yes, I look forward to it.